When you hear the words 80s electric guitar, some sounds might come to mind. Maybe something like this. Now, it's no secret the 80s were a time of big hair, flashy clothes, and hard rock. The electric guitar played a huge role in the culture of this decade and inspired a lot of people to pick up a guitar and learn how to play a musical instrument. However, in the world of jazz, we are seeing a pretty big transition happening. Due to the rising popularity of these electric instruments, a lot of jazz artists were inspired to include some of these sounds in their music. This resulted in a lot of really unique and interesting interpretations. And today, we're going to talk about one guitarist and how he contributed to these sounds, Scott Henderson. Now, artists of all genres were really utilizing the technology of this time, but jazz fusion really provides some of the most unique sounds of the decade. Let's talk about how jazz fusion started. Fusion is a word that is used to describe the blending of two genres or fusing of two genres to achieve a certain sound. Now, the fusion era began around the late 60s with Miles Davis being one of the most influential figures in jazz. He was really inspired by the groove-based elements of rock and funk and wanted to incorporate that into his own music. A couple notable fusion albums that Miles came out with were Files de Kilimanjaro in 1968, In a Silent Way in 1969, and Bitches Brew in 1970. The groovy sound of these albums really paved the way for future fusion pioneers and fans. Some of these pioneers are pretty prominent figures, including Chick Corea and Zawinul.
Both Chick and Joe provided a lot of unique and expressive sounds on their keyboard during these albums.
And later on, they would both start their own projects. Now let's talk about Scott Henderson. Scott grew up in Florida playing blues in the style of Albert King, and later moved to California to study compositional skills that were more catered towards the guitar. There he met bassist Gary Willis, and they would soon record Tribal Tech's first album, Dr. Heat, in 1986. Chick Corea had actually heard this album and hired Scott to be in his electric band. This is one of my favorite eras of Scott's style. Performances like Gotta Match showcase Scott's ability to adapt to and complement Chick's incredible phrasing in a sophisticated way, while still keeping true to his blues roots. In a way, he's giving you everything you want to hear from a guitarist in the 80s while being in a jazz setting. Sweet phrasing, technically challenging bebop lines, a little bit of whammy bar, and he can shred when he deems it appropriate. A couple years later, in 1988, Scott joins Joe Zawinul's project, the Zawinul Syndicate. Scott has often praised Joe Zawinul for being one of the most influential musical figures in his entire life, saying that he was the greatest musician that ever lived and the Mozart of our generation. Scott admires Joe Zawinul for many reasons, the main one being his ability to improvise extremely well. He improvised almost everything he played. Joe could easily sit at a keyboard and write an entire song in just minutes by improvising. Both Chick and Joe really helped Scott develop his true voice on the guitar. Now, as he was playing with these groups, he was also the co-leader of his band Tribal Tech, where he and Gary Willis were really utilizing these teachings in their own way. Now, there are a lot of licks and videos on YouTube that showcase his signature style. I decided to transcribe a lick from one of my favorite Tribal Tech songs entitled Dense Dance. Let's take a look. This song is on their self-titled album, Tribal Tech. The lick is played over a C minor vamp with a funk drum groove at around 110 beats per minute. I've included tabs in case anyone wants to learn it. One of Scott's favorite things to do is play outside the key, as seen in the first few measures where he plays a B major triad over C minor. This is followed by a prolonged bend, common with most blues players. He then goes into a tension-building development that is offset by 16th note rests, a technique he learned from Chick Corea. The phrase resolves later and is followed by some more blues bends. As you can see, he likes to take a lot of small ideas, develop them by going outside the key, and resolve with the use of some blues scale and juicy bends. Scott's soloing style is one of the most prolific jazz fusion style, kind of similar to Alan Holdsworth, but a little less technique-oriented, more melodic focused. Scott is still out there recording, playing, and touring, so if you're a fan of 80s guitar, you should really check him out. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a good day.